something that I tend to ask composers, just because it's such an important component to filmmaking for me. I don't know, it might be a generic question, but what is your favorite score of all time?
Okay, so I would have to list 3 scores.
Okay.
The first one is, and I know it's 3 movies, and I'm a Kiwi, so it's probably a little on the nose to say this, but when Howard Shore's score came out for The Lord of the Rings, it was hugely impactful for me. That was probably the point at which I decided that I wanted to step into, a career in film scoring. So that's definitely in the top. And then another one would be Clint Mansell's score for The Fountain. Was just an incredible score. I remember just being in the theater and blown away by the concept of the film and how the music worked with the story. And then Johnny Greenwood's score for There Will Be Blood. So those would be 3 that are just standout scores that really kind of shaped the way I think about film music and got me excited about trying to make a career out of this.
That's incredible. It's interesting how impactful Howard Shore's score with Lord of the Rings has been. I mean, that got me into film. I remember when Fellowship of the Ring came out, and I didn't know it back then, but those movies are, in total, just amazing films.
Yeah.
But I really gravitated towards the score. I had to have the soundtrack and listen to that over and over. I still do. It's phenomenal.
It was right at that right time. Like, it was at the perfect time. I think I was 15 or 16, and so you're just starting to think about, like, what do you want to do in the future? And you never really know, right? Everyone asks you, your parents' house, what do you want to do when you grow up? You're like, I don't know. And I just, it was like right at that cusp, at that moment where my interest was so peaked. Mm-hmm. And the movies were incredible and the score was great, so I'm glad to know that we both felt the same way. So that's awesome.
I guess we have that in common. We have something else in common. We have both lived in the Pacific Northwest at one point. Tell me more about your experience up there. I mean, I have followers from Bellingham and Seattle, and so I'm sure they would love to hear about how a composer of your stature has lived in our area.
So my wife is originally from the Pacific Northwest. And we decided we would go up there and live for a bit and see how it felt up there, and just gave it a go. So we moved to Snohomish. We were just outside of Snohomish, kind of closer to Munro, but we still claim the Snohomish address, so it's Snohomish. Just so many things we loved about it up there. Being from New Zealand and being used to just epic scenery, it was just a joy to be able to have that in my backyard. Mm-hmm. Skiing, just all the stuff, the ocean, the mountains, and then there's just there's a great film scoring scene there too. They recorded the Revenant soundtrack there, so I did a lot of recordings there at Bastyr, which is their kind of main recording space. Bastyr I believe it's at a university. Was that right? I could be wrong, but beautiful space, beautiful, gorgeous inside, and so I did a lot of sessions there. Just loved it. Unfortunately, the weather affected me more than I would have liked to. I wish I could be one of the people who said, no, I stuck it out. But we ended up actually moving back to Austin, Texas, where I lived before. But there's part of me is always, we definitely want to go there in the summertime and visit. It's just such a beautiful part of the country.
It is, yeah. I mean, I've always said there's a reason Starbucks came out of Seattle. We always needed that coffee to get us through the drearier months that we go through.
Yeah. I noticed that people who've lived there for a long time have a lot of hobbies that they do during those kind of winter months, and I think that caught me off guard, because all of a sudden it was like, I didn't really see anyone anymore. Where's everyone gone? Everyone's disappeared. And then everyone would be like, yeah, we're baking, or we're like crafting, or we're like, and I was like, oh, okay, so that's like a strategy for like being able to kind of get through those, that time of life. And we have the same thing in Austin, except with the heat. It's like, how do we get through the summer?
Right.
You know, go to the pool. Okay, how many times do we go to the pool before we're bored of it? So you come up with other strategies, you know, indoor climbing or whatever it is. You know, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we're here to talk about Went Up the Hill, which we both just got out of one of the screenings of. It was my first time seeing it, and I was just mesmerized by this film, and I'm so impressed that you were able to contribute to that project. Just really quickly, give a synopsis on what Went Up the Hill is about for people who might just be discovering the film.
Sure. So Went Up the Hill is a kind of haunting ghost story that follows two characters, Jack and Jill. And Jack's, without going, I don't want to give spoilers, so all I'm going to say, I wish I was really good at doing this. I wish I had it written down. But Jack's mother, who passes away, comes back as a ghost and inhabits, or goes inside their bodies and switches between the two. And so, but really the story is about trauma and how we process trauma. And it's a very quiet film. It's very, as I said, kind of haunting and ghostly, with the ghost character, you know, being kind of a ghost character that the actors play. So the actors play the third character.
Yeah. You mentioned it being a ghost story and being a quiet film, which is something that really struck me about the movie. I was actively thinking that in the film. There's a lot of like low talking. There's not a whole lot going on. It's kind of like, for the most part, two people in one house, right?
Yes, yeah.
So a very quiet film, and your score complements that. But something that I also recognize is that you know how to build and have the score swell in very, you know, key moments. Talk about the dynamic of scoring, like knowing how to enhance the quiet parts, but also build up the emotional parts that happen in the film.
Yeah. Well, I think because there was a lot that was unspoken in the dialogue, the music had to really help with that. And I don't mean help with the performances of the actors, but help just direct people narratively to what's happening. But we also, like, there was a lot of moments where we were intentionally trying to, like, there are moments where Jack is about to reconnect with his mother at a certain degree, you know, maybe a hug or something, and he's always apprehensive towards it because he doesn't want to go there, and so the music reflects that. So every little shift that's in the music was very intentional, because Sam, the director, Sam Van Grinsven, wanted it to be. So even though it's very washy, and there's a really sense of washiness to the music, every turn and shift and swell was very much like thought out, constructed. You know, if we had to do it differently, we'd shift gears and try something different. But I was really happy with, you know, it's always great to work with a director who's like has those notes for you and has those direction points for you. Yeah, you know, so we were at the most recent screening that we just got out of, and the Q&A was really engaging, and someone actually asked a question that speaks specifically to your role in this film, where it's like the combination of score and sound design, and how both of those kind of had to work together in this film. And something the director had mentioned is that it was really important to use the body to help craft the sound and the music of this movie. Yeah. Tell me about how you went about that. Yeah. So we did a lot of, when I was working with performers, we would have them do a lot of things physically to their body. Mm-hmm. Like I would have singers sing until they ran out of breath and keep going. So you're getting this kind of like stuff. And so we had all these little elements that we tried to kind of weave into the score. Another thing was larynx tapping. So we had a lot of vocalists, they would tap on their larynx as they were singing, which creates this kind of eerie, shaky kind of, but slightly almost percussive sound to the voice. And we also had contact mics that we would put. Contact mic is literally a mic that gets stuck on the body. So rather than being in front of the face, it's actually on the body. So we're able to bring out some of those like body sounds that you're hearing inside. So those were a couple of ways that we did that. And then of course a lot of breath elements. We used a lot of breath elements, which kind of pushed the score a little more into sound design and parts, but there was definitely a very strong connection between the sound design and the music were always designed from the get-go to be like one and not two separate elements.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was very evident. That was another thing that I was thinking about in the movie, because obviously I'm thinking about this interview and talking to you, and so as I'm watching the movie, I'm thinking, wait, is that sound or is that music?
Yeah.
you know, but it's so integrated together and cooperative with each other. It just worked really well.
Yeah, no, and we were very fortunate to work with Rob McKenzie, who was the sound mixer and sound designer on it, and he just, I mean, you heard the sound, it's just incredible. So, I was also providing him with stuff for him to use in sound design, so we were trying to take these, elements that we had in the score and then get them into sound design world too, so very much, a lot of dialogue between between all of the music team and the sound design team to try to make it one and not, these just two separate elements.
Yeah, sure. You've worked with like Terrence Malick before, right? Did I read that?
Yeah,
That's incredible. I absolutely respect his work. And I guess it makes me wonder, like, with your experience, what things have you brought from previous projects into helping enhance what you do here, and also what things were new to you in this? What are some challenges that you overcame with this score?
So one thing that I always bring with me which is something that I've definitely learned a lot from the work I've done with Terry, is just a real spirit of experimentation, of trying new things, sort of considering yourself I don't know, like you're feeling around in the dark to find what it is you're looking for, and we can only kind of have maybe try to pinpoint what it is we're going for. So that, I brought that with me, and I love to be able to work on projects before they shoot, which I did on this film. So I'd already written a lot of music before they even got onto set and started shooting it, and that way it can kind of become an organic process where it's the music's, rather than just temping it with existing music out there and replacing it, like you're actually able to kind of have an ability to maybe help shape the score right from the get-go. Some of the challenges, or at least a big challenge for me, was when I spoke with Sam for the first time. He said, I want this score to be completely vocal, but not choral, like ambient kind of vocals. And I was like, you sure? Like, I don't know about that. And I mean, of course, as you saw, you've seen the film, we didn't just use vocals, but most of it is just vocal. We tried to as much as we could. So I loved that challenge, and I loved, being able to work with a lot of vocalists and really just push the envelope a little and try sounds that I really hadn't heard before come out of the human voice. And so that was a lot of fun. Yeah, that was a lot of fun doing that. And I'm glad that I didn't fight him on that, that I embraced it, because I think the score is so much better with that kind of majority of it being vocal.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not the most experienced creator ever, but when I do make something, if I find an aspect of it that I really like, I tend to watch it like over and over and over, because I really appreciate being able to put something together and create that. In this film, is there a scene or anything that you are particularly proud of, or something that you really enjoy watching or rewatching, or some aspect of it that you're so proud of that you just want to keep engaging and experiencing it?
Well, I'm trying to think if there's an exact scene, but I know that, and don't want to give away anything to anyone, no spoilers here, but there's one sequence in the film, and I'm sure you know what it is because you've just seen it, but there's one sequence in the film, kind of about 3/4 way through, or maybe, about 3/4 the way through, as we're getting closer to the end, and we're kind of, we're in a moment where it looks like all might be well, after all. And there's just all these it's a very ambient piece of music, but it has all these little kind of turns and shifts in it that when you're listening to it, just kind of feel like, okay, yeah. But it took me so long to get that one right, I tell you. And then at the end, we have a big shift at the end where we so it's this wandering little piece of music, but I had to kind of hit all of these, have all of these subtle shifts in it. And I'm really happy with it because it took so long to get it right, but at the end I think it works well.
I do remember that scene, and I remember noticing that in the score and just really admiring how that was put together, and obviously like complimenting what's going on in that scene. So great job on that. The thing with composing and scoring films is that I think it's an underappreciated art. I think most moviegoers go to a film and they enjoy it, and the score is a large part of why they enjoy it, but it's so baked into the film that I don't think people recognize that sometimes. What would you say to audiences to like be mindful of when it comes to the score when they go to see a movie?
That's a really good question. I think you've been asked that question before. I mean, I think that's the job of film music, is to not be noticeable. I mean, occasionally there are scores that really stand out, and people notice them, and I think they deserve to be noticed because they're works of art in their own right. I mean, with a film, you have the ability at the end, the music can stand on its own, that you can listen to soundtracks and not have even seen the movie, and you can still enjoy them, which is one of the, I love the fact that I can release a soundtrack or I can listen to someone else's soundtrack that they've done, and I maybe haven't even seen the film, but I can still appreciate the music. But I think a great film score is one that is so embedded with the story that maybe maybe it doesn't stand out too much. But that's just my opinion. Maybe there are other people out there like, film music needs to be more like, everyone needs to take note of it. I tell you, if you ever do the little experiment where you take a piece of music and you have a scene and you switch it out with different pieces of music, you realize like, oh my goodness, you don't realize how much that the music that you see in a movie is affecting you emotionally until you switch it out for something different. You're like, oh, that doesn't, it's
totally different, and you can take the same footage, just put different music on it. It totally changes the vibe sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, music just kind of has that power, and so that's something that I think about. I'm particularly sensitive to like listening to music because that's a thing that I really appreciate in film. But yeah, I'll walk out of a movie and be like, man, that score was great.
Yeah.
And my friends will be like, oh yeah, there was music, there wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just something that I think about.
One of the absolutely awesome things about film scoring is that anything's on the table. Mm-hmm. Absolutely anything, and that's what separates it from, maybe, working in the popular music world or something where you might be restricted by how long it can be, or there's a lot of that. That's not to say there are not records out there that are just incredible. Of course there are, but with film music you can take the tiniest thing and turn it into something huge. And like in this instance with this film, like doing weird vocal like things that sustain for ages, like you might not be able to put that out on a regular record, but for a soundtrack you can. And I love that about I truly feel like I get to be kind of this kind of well, maybe wizard's not the right word, but some type of like mad scientist, maybe, like where I'm just like taking sounds and doing all sorts of crazy stuff to it, and I absolutely love that. That's my happy place right there. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and bring this interview to a close, but we are here at the Toronto Film Festival, which is awesome. The movie has premiered, and we just went to the second screening that it had, and obviously lots of people turning out to this film. And so it just, my final question is just, what does this mean to you? What does it mean to be here at TIFF and having this film premiering here and people seeing it starting in Toronto?
Yeah, I mean, this is my first time here. This is the first TIFF I've come to, and I just I love the city. I love the vibe of like everyone's so friendly, and it feels like a non-pretentious festival. I love that. It means a lot because I was just saying to someone before that, you know, sometimes the composers have a tendency to kind of hide out in their studio, and or I should say for myself, I have a tendency as a composer to hide out in my studio. So I'm actually really working to try to get out more and, you know, meet people and do my thing. So it's exciting to be able to be back and doing this, and now COVID's well in the past, and we can just be together again and just enjoy great movies and enjoy each other. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, once again, congratulations on this film being here and premiering in Toronto, and I'm excited for this movie to go out to everyone, and I'll be keeping up with your career. I look forward to whatever you do next.
Awesome. Thanks, Thomas.